Seville, 1649. A city once hailed as Babylon, the glittering economic heart of a global empire, has suddenly transformed into a vast necropolis.
Just gone.
The bubonic plague is ravaging every street, claiming the lives of half the population. In the midst of this stench of death and overwhelming grief, one man suffers the unthinkable loss of several of his own children.
Right in the epicenter of it all.
Yet he does not turn to the shadows. Instead, he begins to flood his canvases with an almost celestial light and a sense of profound hope. How did Bartolome Murillo transform into the painter of joy during Spain's most desolate hour?
It's one of the most remarkable psychological pivots in the history of art. I mean, you have a man standing in the ruins of his world, and he makes a conscious decision to paint the exact opposite of what he sees.
And that's what we're unpacking today. Because if you know Murillo, you probably think of, soft clouds, cherubs, happy kids eating fruit. You don't think of the apocalypse. But to understand the light, you really have to understand the darkness that came before it.
Absolutely. You have to picture Seville before the crash. It was the new Babylon. It was the port of the Indies.
All the gold from the Americas.
Every ounce of gold and silver, stolen or mined, flowed through this one city. It was loud, cosmopolitan, and just incredibly rich.
But it's a tale of two cities, wasn't it? It wasn't rich for everyone.
Oh, far from it. It was a place of extreme duality. You had the cathedral and the palaces on one side just dripping with wealth.
And on the other.
And then just across the river in neighborhoods like Triana, you had this crushing poverty. It was a pressure cooker. But the plague of 1649, well, that was the great equalizer.
The stats are just horrifying. You said half the population?
Roughly half. We're talking 60,000 people dead in a matter of months.
Wow.
The descriptions from the time are they're nightmare fuel. They couldn't bury bodies fast enough.
And the whole economy just sucked.
But it didn't just stall, it collapsed. The foreign merchants fled. The trade monopoly Seville held began to shift to the coast, to Cadiz. Seville turned from a global capital into, well, a ghost town.
And Murillo is right there in the middle of it. And you mentioned he lost his own children.
The records are a bit fragmented, but yes, it's heavily implied he lost several children to the plague, so his world is shattered. And this is where the artistic shift happens. Before this, Murillo was painting in what we call a harsh naturalism.
Like Caravaggio, all heavy shadows and gritty reality.
Exactly. It's called tenebrism. Lots of black, lots of drama, very stark. It says, look at the suffering of the saint.
But after 1649,
that vanishes. He starts developing this gentler aesthetic.
A cynic might say he was just running away from reality, that he couldn't handle the truth, so he painted a fantasy.
It's easy to think that, but I think it's actually the opposite. It wasn't escapism, it was a service. He realized that his neighbors, the survivors, were traumatized. They walked past death every time they stepped outside. They didn't need to go into a church and see more darkness on the altarpiece. They needed consolation.
So he was painting a coping mechanism.
He was constructing a visual antidote. He offered them a vision of the divine that wasn't judgmental or terrifying, but soft, welcoming, and safe. He painted the light they couldn't see in the streets.
Speaking of the streets, we have to talk about the subjects he's arguably most famous for, at least outside of Spain. The street urchins.
The beggar children. This is where Murillo really breaks the mold.
Because he wasn't the first person to paint poor people.
No, but he was arguably the first to treat them like humans. If you look at Dutch or Italian art from this period, or even earlier, the poor were often used as punchlines.
Where they were caricatures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were painted as grotesque, fighting, drinking, full of vice. It was satire. The message was, look at these wretches, don't be like them.
But Murillo's kids, they don't look like wretches. I'm looking at two boys eating melon and grapes. They just look content.
They look vital. That's the word I always come back to, vitality. He sanctified poverty.
And in that painting you mentioned, look at what they're doing. They aren't begging.
No, they're not crying. They are just eating fruit.
They have agency.
Precisely. In almost all his genre paintings, the kids are playing dice, they're selling water, they're sharing food, they're getting by. He gave them dignity. He's saying that joy isn't just for the aristocracy. It exists here, too, on the street corner.
But here is the plot twist that I found so fascinating. The Spanish nobility, the people who actually saw these kids every day, they weren't buying these paintings.
No, they wanted the saints and the virgins. They didn't want a painting of the homeless kid outside their palace.
So who was buying them?
Foreigners. Specifically Dutch and Flemish merchants.
Which is wild. You have these wealthy, often Protestant, Northern Europeans collecting paintings of poor Catholic Spanish children. Why?
It's a mix of things. First, the Dutch loved genre painting scenes of everyday life. That was already their tradition.
Okay, so it fit their taste.
But Murillo gave them something else. He gave them the sunny South.
Or like a travel poster.
In a way, imagine you're a merchant living in Antwerp or London. It's gray, it's rainy, it's cold, and you hang a Murillo on your wall.
And suddenly you have this blast of warm, golden Spanish light.
And these exotic barefoot children eating exotic fruit like melons. It's the Mediterranean dream package for a northern living room.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and we even know the names of these collectors. There was a silk merchant named Nicolas Amazur. He owned something like 30 Murillos. And another guy, Josua van Bel. These guys pack these canvases into crates and ship them north.
So that's why if you want to see Murillo street kids today, you don't go to Seville.
You go to Munich or London or Paris.
That is ironic. The most civilian subjects ended up being his biggest exports. Now let's talk about the how. We keep saying he painted light, but what does that mean technically? Because there's a specific term for his later style.
The estilo vaporoso.
The Vaporous style.
Or the misty style. This is the technical evolution that happens after the plague. Remember the hard lines and heavy shadows of his youth?
Yeah.
He throws those out. He starts using a technique called wet in wet.
Painting over paint that hasn't dried yet.
Yes. It allows the colors to physically blend on the canvas. And he used these incredibly thin, translucent glazes. The result is you lose the hard edges. The figures don't have sharp outlines. They seem to melt into the atmosphere.
There's a beautiful description from a critic later on who called it the indecision of profiles wisely and sweetly lost.
Isn't that poetic? Indecision of profiles? It sounds like a criticism, like he couldn't make up his mind where the nose ended, but it's actually a mastery of air.
It creates a vibration.
Yes. When you look at a Vaporoso painting, it feels like the image is breathing.
And he used this to make the religious figures feel more approachable, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Holy Family with the little bird.
That is the perfect example. Strip away the titles for a second. What do you see?
I see a dad holding a toddler between his knees, playing with a little dog and a bird. It's just a family.
Exactly. It's not a thunderous, terrifying God. It's a dad. It's intimate. And this was exactly what the church wanted during the Counter-Reformation.
Right, to win people's hearts.
Not just their minds. They wanted the common person who had just survived a plague to look at the Holy Family and see a reflection of their own best moments. It's devotion through love, not fear.
And he takes that softness and applies it to the biggest icon of them all, the Immaculate Conception.
He practically owns that image.
He painted so many of them.
He really does, around 20 times. And before Murillo, painting the Immaculate Conception was a headache. The theology is complicated, Mary being conceived without sin, and the old paintings were cluttered with symbols.
Towers, mirrors, fountains.
It looked like a rebus puzzle. Murillo cleaned it up, he stripped it down. He created the formula we all know today. The upward spiral, the white tunic for purity, the blue mantle for eternity, the crescent moon, the cherubs, and above all, that golden amber light.
He made it iconic, like a logo.
He did. He made complex theology look simply beautiful. And the people of Seville were obsessed. There were legends that popped up while he was still alive. People claim the paintings were so beautiful they must have been painted by angels.
There's that great story about the bird, too.
Yes. The legend of the vision of St. Anthony. They said he painted a vase of lilies so realistically that a bird tried to fly into the cathedral and peck at the canvas.
Which is the ultimate humble brag legend for an artist. I've fooled nature itself.
Right. But it wasn't just pretty pictures. There was heavy theology underneath, especially with the Soult Immaculate.
Immaculate Conception of the Venerables. Now, that painting has a crazy backstory. It's named after a French marshal, Soult. And he wasn't a patron, he was a plunderer.
Right, so we have to jump forward to the Napoleonic Wars. Marshal Soult was a French commander in Spain, and he had a voracious appetite for Murillo. He treated Seville like a catalog where everything was 100% off.
He looted the city.
Systematically, he stripped the churches. He took the Immaculate Conception of the Venerables right off the wall. He famously said one time, while looking at a Murillo he couldn't steal yet, "I will come back for you."
That is menacing. But weirdly, this theft is what made Murillo a global superstar.
It's the irony of art history. Soult took these masterpieces to Paris, and suddenly the rest of Europe saw them, and they went insane for them.
Murillo mania.
Murillo mania was real. In the 19th century, he was arguably the most expensive artist in the world, more than Raphael or Michelangelo.
No way.
At that moment, yes. When Soult died, his collection was auctioned in 1852. The Louvre bought that Immaculate Conception. They paid a world record price for it. It was the most valuable painting on the planet.
But if I go to the Louvre today, I won't see it. It's back in Madrid, at the Prado. How did it get home?
That is a detective story. It happened in 1941.
Right in the middle of World War II.
Exactly. The Spanish government, under Franco, wanted it back. They saw it as a national relic, a piece of Spain's soul held hostage in France. So they negotiated a swap with the Vichy government.
What did they trade for it?
This tells you how much they valued Murillo. To get that one painting back, Spain traded a portrait by Velázquez and a portrait by Goya.
Wow.
Two of the greatest giants of art history traded for one Murillo.
That is a blockbuster trade. So we've covered his rise, his style, the theft of his work. But we have to talk about the end of the man himself. Because there's a famous legend about how he died.
The legend of the fall. It's very dramatic. The story goes that he was in Cadiz, an old man, climbing up a scaffold to paint the mystic marriage of St. Catherine. He stumbles, falls, and dies from the injuries.
A martyr to his art.
A very Hollywood ending, yeah.
But modern science says that's not quite what happened.
No. When art historians and doctors looked closely at his late drawings and signatures, they found something revealing. A tremor.
His hands were shaking.
Badly. His handwriting gets shaky, his lines waver. It suggests he was suffering from a progressive degenerative condition long before he ever went to Cadiz.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it also changes how I see the paintings.
Completely. Think about the Vaporous style again. The softness, the lack of hard lines.
If his hands were shaking, he couldn't paint hard lines even if he wanted to.
Exactly. He adapted. He turned his physical weakness into his greatest aesthetic strength. He was painting that perfect, still, celestial light while his own body was betraying him. It makes the work so much more heroic.
And yet, despite the tremor, despite the tragedy of his life, he kept a sense of humor.
I love the self-portraits.
Oh, the one in the National Gallery is brilliant. It's a trompe-l'oeil, a trick of the eye. He paints himself inside a fancy stone oval frame. He looks very serious, very dignified.
But then
he paints his own hand resting on the stone frame, sticking out of it into our space.
He's breaking the fourth wall.
He is. He's winking at us. He's saying, I am here, but this is all an illusion. It's the master of reality breaking the barrier between art and life one last time.
So, when we step back and look at the whole picture, we have a man who lived through the apocalypse of his city. He buried his children. He watched his world crumble. And yet he refused to paint the darkness. That is the core of it. Murillo wasn't painting pretty pictures because he was shallow. He was constructing a psychological defense for a city in mourning. He took the horror of 1649 and he transmuted it into that vaporous golden light.
He gave them hope?
He did. He made the divine feel close, like a father holding a son, and he gave dignity to the kids selling water on the corner who everyone else ignored.
It's a powerful legacy. And I think it leaves us with something to really chew on. We often dismiss pretty or optimistic art as easy, right? We think real art has to be dark and gritty.
We mistake cynicism for depth. We think if it's dark, it's true.
But considering what Murillo lived through, was his optimism actually the most rebellious choice he could have made?
I think so. To stare into the face of death and choose to paint joy, that's not denial. That is bravery.
Maybe the light is harder to paint than the dark. Something to think about.
Oh, well,
thank you so much for walking us through this story.
It was a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, if you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button and like the show so you don't miss what we're covering next. We'll see you then.